How do you think airlines make most of their money?
Flights itself,
Yeah, I
the
think
like luxuries
that's
of
what I thought.
things, the tickets. Yes.
Yeah, so that's actually like basically close to wrong. Like the out of the big three in the United States, United, Delta, and American Airlines, a majority of
Mhm.
them actually lose money on flights. And so then it begs the question, how do they actually make a lot of their money? So I
Well,
was
okay, go ahead. Good. I was gonna say maybe working with the banks itself with the point system like Amex or Chase. It
That's
so
exactly what it is.
okay.
Yep. So I came across a video on YouTube by Wendover Productions. They're like this YouTube channel that just deep dives into different industries and like breaks down things. It's kind of like the how it works from the History Channel kind of thing, but this is the YouTube version. There was a video that they put together that went through the financials of United, but then that kind of opened the door for them to research further into the airlines themselves. And so one of the things that kind of started their investigation was really during COVID, United Airlines had to take out a large loan, right? If you remember, all of travel kind of collapsed
Mm-hmm.
and no one had access to like all the airlines, no one was flying them, so they weren't making money on that end, and so they need they needed a loan. But anytime you take out a loan, you need collateral of some sort. And what United did was instead of putting up the actual airline itself, they put up what was called Mileage Plus Holding LLC. That's a subsidiary of United that manages their entire Mileage Plus loyalty program.
Oh,
And
so
so
this
then
creates a
you're
whole different entity for this.
there's a whole different entity for this. So then you're like,
Holy crap.
wait, a $5 billion loan with the collateral being their loyalty program. So you're like, okay, there's got to be some value there if they're putting that up as collateral and not the actual airline itself.
Mm-hmm.
So to kind of put this into perspective here, in early 2022, right when this video was published, the market cap of United was $10 billion. Their loyalty program was valued at $21 billion.
What?
Exactly. And this trend exists throughout Delta and American Airlines as well, where their loyalty programs are like 3-4x the value of what the actual airline's market cap is itself.
So I'm gonna regress real fast. Let's define on the market cap. Defining the market cap is just the business itself, correct? Like just simple buying airline tickets, buying was it paying for pilots, paying for that market cap wise, just the ins and outs of that financing structure, correct?
Right. So these
Okay.
are all publicly traded companies. And if you were to Google United Airlines, what they're basically going to do is they're going to multiply the share price times the number of shares, which gives you the total value of what that company is.
Perfect. Then loyalty programs. I know we just said loyalty program. What is an in-depth like components of defining a loyalty program? Just for my knowledge. Because I
Yeah.
just want to say like, oh, loyalty program for me, it's just the point itself. What does that even mean deep diving? So
Right.
before we go
So,
further, all right.
United Airlines has their Mileage Plus loyalty program. What that is a individual signs up with that program with United, and as they either fly in United or spend money with their credit cards or any of their business partners, they'll basically get these points back in that program that then they could redeem for things like flights or upgrades or other things like that. So those programs themselves, the point programs, is the loyalty programs that I'm talking about. So here's where it gets even more interesting, right? Because then you're
Please keep
like,
going. This is really this. I still can't grasp my head on how a loyalty program is more than the business itself, which is crazy.
yeah. And so at first I didn't really understand it as much either until and honestly, when I was like going through this, I was like, I can't believe I didn't put this together, considering I've been point hacking for the past 10 years, and this directly affects all of the like economics behind everything I've been doing. It's like I've been focused on level one of okay, this is just how I optimize it, but I don't care about how it's actually working, like what causes those things versus like if I took one step deeper, I could have actually understood the mechanics of why certain things are the way that they are and why, like high level, points themselves over the past 10 years are not as valuable as they were back then. In my mind, I was like, inflation, and nothing is worth what it was back then. But like, this is like why it's getting to that point, right? And so really how it works is when you fly, so these programs, each point used to be tied to the number of miles that you flew, and then you would be rewarded a certain number of points that were associated with that. Around 10 years ago, people used to do these things called mileage runs, where the cost that you're spending on the flight is significantly less than the amount of the miles that you were going to travel. So you could actually get more points than what you would typically pay for. Right. So an example from that is like, let's say San Francisco to LA versus San Francisco to Seattle. Let's say the LA trip is $50 one way, and the trip to come up to Seattle is $100. In the old program, you would get the same number of points, but you paid half the amount. So that was a way people were starting to take advantage of these programs so that you could really rank up a lot of the points. What they ended up changing it to, and you'll see in a lot of the programs today, is it's really tied to the amount of spend. So if you happen to get a $50 flight, well, the amount of points that you're going to earn are somewhat proportional to that spend versus spending the $100 on another flight in the same amount of distance, right?
Yeah. So it's variable in the sense of percentage of the cost, not now just a round whole number of you buy $50, you just get a lump sum of X consistently throughout the board.
Right. No. And then what they like, the big unlock with these programs is when they started making deals with credit card companies, and that became the reward piece, right? Because now a credit card company, let's say, has access to so many hundreds of thousands or millions of points that, let's say, United is, they're making them like, this isn't tied to anything, right? So like, if they're like, we're going to issue another 200,000 points, there's nothing that stops them. They're a kind of a point printing company that's unregulated, and they could just create more points and sell them off with no real repercussions on the back end. So like, let's say they sell a point to Citibank or Chase, and that's going to become the point that you can earn, right, when you're transferring. So you transfer that over for a penny each point, right? And so if you spend a certain amount of money, now you're going to try to like redeem it, right, for like 25,000 points, or the equivalent of like $250 worth of like the monetary value of that 25,000 points is like $250 for that trip. Mm-hmm. And so when you're booking that trip, let's say from San Francisco to LA, and you're spending 25,000 points on that one way, indirectly, United just got paid for your fare $250 for that one-way flight. But in cash, that might have been only a $50 flight. So you see now there's a larger spread to actually be made in the point systems than actually having people pay in cash.
Oh, snap. So it's like literally the casino thinking you actually won from the house, but it's not.
Exactly.
Okay, so let me just break this down. It's coming from me. So airline, it's a airline A sells to bank A. That's B2B transaction.
Correct.
Then at a certain point, when the consumer from bank A gets all like the 1,000 points and wants to go back to transfer back into the partner to bank A, now it goes to a C2B approach.
Mm-hmm.
Oh snap!
It's like redeeming a gift card, right? Like it's all digital money being floated around, but that digital money has a value.
And also now that's why it's so valued so high, is because if you really break it down, now they're doing a coexist of bank A and airline A of mutual, pretty much sharing, even for information at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's even more valuable. I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah. And here's where the spread is too. So the Points Guy, NerdWallet, they had all this like data back then that kind of, you can look at different points of data to determine, okay, what is a mileage plus point actually worth in the market? And so they valued a 1 point to be 1.226 cents. Usually when we're, redeeming these points, we're looking at each point as a penny.
Mm-hmm.
So for every point that's being transacted, there's a profit of 0.22 cents being made. So when you're moving this at scale of tens of thousands of points, that's like a really big spread, right? Like this is like credit card companies that take a
Yeah,
small cut, but they just want to
but
push a ton of
but
transactions.
so much.
This is the exact same thing on a points side where they're like, yeah, we're taking a very, very, very small cut, but on a huge, huge scale.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You pretty much they're losing money at that point. So how do they account for like churning and point hackers to be like, oh snap, like you think that's just a calculated risk and cost and just hopefully kind of preying on the general public that doesn't know they're just going to spend on points because they have points, but really not how to maximize said points.
I think the individuals that optimize point redemption is definitely the minority, right? The
Yeah,
majority of people, they'll still use the credit card travel portal or those other things where the redemption is roughly a penny. Like there's
yeah,
sometimes in those portals the redemption is worth less than a penny a point.
yeah.
And so from like United standpoint, they're still going to be up, right? Because
Because
the majority of people that are doing this is
going
specifically
through the
looking for that.
portal or just go direct versus like in the sense of us, what's our first go to? We just go Google searches, look for the cheapest flight, and then figure out what is our airline travel partners with that said credit card, either Amex or Chase, and then go from there. That's our approach. Then you'll be like, okay, if it's valuable, then you go comparing to the dollar amount to the point amount. Then you can see if it's actually more worth it.
Yeah. And you and like you and me, we only look for business class flights. And so there's a little bit of a gap there, right? So let's say that the business class flight that we're taking from the west coast of the United States down to Africa, right? We spent, was it 150 each way?
Yeah, 150 each way.
Or was it one?
No, I did a one way, so I spent $80. So let's go with one way.
You spent
$80.
80,000?
Yeah.
Okay. So you spent 80,000 points for a business class flight that cost $3,000 in cash for that one way flight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the equivalent of $800 in points.
Mm-hmm.
And so that small change there, that's the difference between those that are redeeming it where United's still making a killing. So there's a lot of like it all comes back to like those point systems is where a majority of that money is actually being made. So the point systems, they're getting really smart with it, but that's because it's their cash cow. It's
Well, again,
wild, right?
it's still the minority of it. I still feel like we're getting our bang for our buck. Individually, I think we get bang for our buck. It's just individuals who don't put the time and effort to figure it out. Like I forgot one of our homies. It was, yeah, I hate fucking points. Points suck. It's like, how'd you go? How'd you redeem them? I went to the portal. I'm like, well, that's probably it.
Yeah.
Like,
The
did you
majority
not
of people
go
do
through
that.
certain? Yeah, and they don't. It's just convenience of it, and they did a really good job on steering it that way. For me, I still buy flights domestic, but international ones are super expensive. So for me, I'm like, I know where my penny's going, like where these little points are going. I think the last really being on top of like point hacking, I had, oh God, Lisbon, Budapest, Tanzania, Mexico City. What else did I travel to? Those are the biggest trips I got within my point hacking era. So that's also the willingness people would go through if unless they just say I'm just gonna go through United and F it, swipe the card, let's go. But people are like that. They just go directly to the website itself and that's it. And they also have particularities. Are they flexible? Yeah.
Yeah. People do the portal because that's what it I mean that's how the game that you're playing, that's how the structure is built, right? Like when you go to Vegas, you might feel like you're winning, but it's designed for you to lose. So it's just one thing to keep in mind. I don't know. I super nerded out on this just
No,
because
I love
I'm
it,
super
dude. It's
into this. I know we went way over time on this one
no, it's
topic,
good. We
but
went overtime on the AI topic too, so it's fine.
yeah, dude, definitely check. Like, we'll put the link to the actual video in the description below. But I hardcore nerded out on this because then I started thinking, like, is this how hotels mostly make money too? Because the only other transfer partners that are big for credit cards are also the hotel industry. And so my mind just started
It
going,
could
and
be
I
the
was
same thing for
like,
hotel.
from a standpoint, not the best. From a product standpoint, Marriott, I think, has the best product.
Yes, but they're so freaking smart about it.
I mean, there's a reason why they're the largest chain in the world.
Yeah.